met Jeffrey Johnson a few weeks ago at a conference that we did over in Baker, Louisiana at Reformation Church, where my good friends, Pastor Rusty Reed and Adam Haney, are pastors there. It was an eschatology conference, and I've been a part of it for the last 3 years. We've been doing it for 3 years, and this year we decided to get an amillennialist and a postmillennialist together and have a conversation. And so we got Dr. Johnson, Jeffrey Johnson, to represent the amillennialist position, and then our good friend Mark Jarvis from Alabama to represent the postmillennial position. And they each preached a sermon on Friday night, and then Saturday morning we had a few sessions of discussion. I helped lead with that. And if you're interested in eschatology, it was a great weekend that we had. I'll put a link in the description. I have the videos here on my YouTube channel. But Dr. Johnson, Jeffrey Johnson, is a pastor up in Arkansas, Conway, Arkansas, Grace Bible Church there, also the president of Grace Bible Theological Seminary. He also has a publishing company where he publishes books. And I'd read a few of Dr. Johnson's books before, at least a couple of them. I think I read The Fatal Flaw of Infant Baptism, where he takes on our Presbyterian brothers on their view of covenant theology. And also another book, I think it's called The Kingdom of God, where he also deals with Baptist covenant theology. But my friend Rusty, Pastor Rusty from Reformation Church, mentioned that he thinks that Dr. Johnson's best-selling book was on the church. And so as soon as I got home, I looked it up on Amazon, and I found this copy, The Church, Why Bother? And ordered it. It was out of print, and so I got a used copy. I think it was like $6, $7 or something. And so I just finished reading it. I want to tell you about it, but actually, before I mention the book, this copy, I did right before I clicked record on this video. I checked the website, Dr. Johnson's website, their publishing company, and realized the reason why this one is out of print is because there is a new version, expanded version. He reorders the chapters and expands it out some, and so I probably should have got that one. I think the content's probably a little bit the same, mostly the same. He said it just expanded a little bit and maybe clarified a couple of things, and so let me recommend the newer version if you'd like to get that, or if you can get your hands on an older copy. Both of them are great, I'm sure. I also noticed that they had a DVD set that you could use in a small group or something, a Bible study to go along with the book, as well as a documentary. And the documentary, I've got to get that. It's a documentary. It's got guys like Vodi Bakum and Paul Washer and some guys like that talking about the church, which is a very important doctrine. I've said for years that I think that one of the most neglected doctrines in America today is the doctrine of ecclesiology, the doctrine of the church is ecclesiology. We have just such a low view of the church. And we treat it like it's like a grocery store or a coffee shop, and take it or leave it. And that's kind of what Jeffrey Johnson was getting at with the original title, The Church, Why Bother? Which, by the way, one more thing before I get to the book, if you do Google it, don't get it confused by a book of the same name by Philip Yancey. So I don't know, it's sort of weird. It had the same name. Philip Yancey's a book, a very popular author, a totally different topic of the book, but it's the same title. Or Sam Alisbury, however you say his name, the Anglican priest that has a book with a very similar name as well. So it's Jeffrey Johnson's book that I'm talking about, The Church, Why Bother? So anyway, it's like I said, it's a very short book, 10 short chapters on the nature of the church, the purpose of the church, the mission of the church, the membership of the church, discipline of the church discipline he deals with, the activities of the church, what should we be doing, the worship of the church. And so 10 short chapters that really just helps us think biblically about the church. I kind of had a feeling that this came out of Bible studies probably that he did at his own church, Jeffrey Johnson did, and then he put them together and published them for a larger audience, which I think is a great idea. For more pastors ought to do that. You put together great content for your church, Why not package it and make it available to others? And that's apparently what he's done. And he's just a keen thinker, and it helps us tremendously. It's a very easy book to read. It's not very academic. It's written for the average lay person in the pews to understand, what are we doing here? What is the nature of the church, and what is the purpose of the church, and what is it all about? And so it's very helpful there. He pushes back on some of the concepts that are the way that church is kind of viewed now as basically kind of like just a religious entertainment venue. Oftentimes, and so he deals with those kinds of things. I won't make a long video about it. Other than I will mention the introduction for I thought it was very helpful. In the introduction, so sort of a chapter length introduction where he deals with the doctrine of salvation. And he said, look, churches are going to have one or two views, either a high view of God and a low view of man, or a high view of man and a low view of God. And so dealing with that is everything else flows out of one of those two paradigms. And too many churches today, he argues, are coming at it from a low view of God and a high view of man. And that there's the doctrine of salvation that he labels easy believism. And we often hear easy believism, that the doctrine of salvation, that conversion is nothing more than just mental assent to a couple of propositions, and hey, you can take it or leave it. It's sort of one of those things. And you have a low view of God, a high view of man, a low view of conversion. It's going to play out in the way that you do church and that you understand the church. And then the opposite of easy believism, he labels lordship salvation, which I thought it was interesting that he used the title lordship salvation. That comes out of the debates from the 80s with John MacArthur and DTS and the book. If you haven't read the book, The Gospel According to Jesus, very helpful. But it was the critics of John MacArthur that labeled it lordship salvation, a sort of pejorative term, and Dr. Johnson just uses it proudly, but he says, look, if you're not bowing to Christ as Lord, you haven't been converted. That salvation is just not a mental assent. It's not praying a prayer. It's not walking an aisle. It's repenting and believing in the finished work of Christ on the cross. And so he spells that out in the opening chapter, and he says, if you get that wrong, you're going to get everything else wrong. And then he elaborates on that in the rest of the book. And so I thought it was an excellent book. I would highly recommend it. I could say more about it. I mean, it's one of those books that I'm kind of almost tempted to make a video on each chapter and just do a Bible study itself. I might do that at our church or at the church plant, replant that I'm helping with. I'm going to have some of the guys read it there because I think it's very helpful to understand what are we doing here. And so I'm going to go ahead and cut this video off. I mentioned several links I'm going to in the description that I'll put in, but I'll go ahead and cut this video off because I want you to get off of YouTube and go read a book.